Hello everybody and welcome to the Gifford Primary School EYFS reading workshop. I did this in school last week, but I know it was the very first day back of term, so I think quite a few of you couldn't make it. So we thought we'd record it so that you can all watch it from home. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Mrs. Herbert and I am the interim Senko for Gifford and the EYFS lead, whilst Mrs. Tiago is on maternity leave. So this is a really short information video for you just to explain about how we're developing reading in the early years and the importance of reading with your children. So I love this quote from Dr. Seuss. The more that you read, the more things you will know, the more that you learn, the more places you'll go. And I think we can all agree that that's really true. So if I go on to the next slide. So today we'll be learning a little bit about how children learn to read, where we find things to read, how you can support your child at home, and how we promote the love of reading at Gifford. And also I will be talking about reading records, which will be going out very, very soon. So why is reading important? Reading is important for lots of reasons. It expands our vocabulary, it improves writing skills and grammar, it develops our imagination and creativity, it helps children to make sense of the world around them, and us as adults, if we don't know something, we find out about it. It helps us to build stronger relationships with our children because of the intimacy and the closeness of reading. It's a really nice activity to do with your children. It develops concentration skills and it's fun and entertaining, especially when we read things that we enjoy. So reading requires two skills. We're talking word recognition, which is the ability to recognise words presented in and out of context. So in context is within a story, say out of context is when you just have flashcards. It's the ability to blend letter sounds, which we call phonemes, together to read words. And you will be having further phonics workshops as well, because I know sort of the terminology around phonics is really complicated. But reading also requires understanding, and that's the ability to understand the meaning of words and sentences. So if I said Teddy had a blue hat, what colour hat did Teddy have? If your child can tell you that the hat was blue, they've also understood what they've read. It also has the ability to understand ideas, information and themes in a text. And if a child understands what they hear, they'll understand the same information when they read, when they get to a point that they can read independently as well. So how do children learn to read? So I'm going to take you through the child development stages now, and we're going to look at how babies develop reading skills. It's such a complex thing, isn't it? So when babies are aged 0 to 12 months, they begin to reach for soft-covered books or board books. They often put them in their mouths because they don't understand that a book is a book, but that's okay because that's what babies do. They look at and touch the pictures in the books. If you sit with them and read to them, they might respond to a story by cooing or making sounds. They'll help you turn the pages, but most of all, they enjoy sharing stories with you. That's really interesting because babies aren't born with good vision. Vision is the only sense that you develop as you grow. So actually, by spending time with children, looking at books, holding things at close range to them, you'll actually develop their vision. And I don't think a lot of people know that. So when children get to a toddler stage, so 1 or 2 years, they'll be able to look at pictures and name familiar items. So they might look at a picture book, ball, baby, dog, cat. They'll be able to answer questions about what they see. So what's that? A tree. They might recognise the covers of their favourite books and be able to fetch it for you to read to them. They'll be able to join in with you, reciting the words to their favourite books. They might start pretending to read, so they'll sit on the floor and turn pages and talk. They might not be reading what the book says, but they're pretending to read and they understand the concept of a book at that point. But again, they enjoy sharing those stories with you, and that's really, really important. So by the time children get to nursery age, they know the correct way to hold and handle a book. So children tend to know that we need to look after books, and it's really important that we stress that, obviously, that books are to look after and they're not to be thrown in the water tray, for example. They understand that in English, words are read from left to right and pages are read from top to bottom. If children are reading other languages and other languages are spoken at home, then they'll soon learn the difference between English and another language that's read from right to left. And that's brilliant as well, because the more children are spoken to and read to in any language, the better. Children in nursery will start noticing words that rhyme. They'll be able to retell stories. They might start to recognise their name, so be able to look at their name in class when they self-register. They'll also start to recognise words on logos, so they'll be able to read McDonald's most likely, Tesco, Aldi, Lidl, different places that you go to. Again, they enjoy sharing stories, and that enjoyment is absolutely key. Reading progression is huge in the reception year. So between nursery and reception, we see a huge development in children's literacy. So by the end of reception or during their reception year, children learn to match sounds to the letters to the sound it represents. They'll be able to identify the beginning, middle and ending sounds in words. So know that dog starts with d and sit ends with it. They'll be able to say new words by changing the beginning sound. So rat, sat, mat, hat. Again, further examples of rhyming. They'll start matching words they hear to words that they see on a page. So they'll start to take educated guesses at what words say. They'll be able to sound out simple words. So if you said, how do we spell frog? They'll be able to tell you it's frog. They'll start to recognise some words by sight without having to sound them out. So in English, we do have lots of words, things like that you can't sound out phonetically, but children just start to learn them just by memory and repetition. They'll be able to ask and answer who, what, where, when, why, and how questions about a story. So you can talk to them about characters, you can talk to them about what's happened in it, you can talk to them about if they've enjoyed it or not. They'll be able to retell a story in order using words and pictures. They'll be able to predict what happens next. That's a really important skill. They'll start reading or asking to be read books for information and fun. So you'll often find in a reception classroom, children will come and seek out an adult and ask you to read them a story. When they're playing, they'll use story language. So in the role play, they might repeat stories they've heard, or they'll say things like, I can fly. And again, they enjoy sharing stories, and that enjoyment is absolutely key, because we know in life that if we enjoy anything, we're more likely to do it again. So I want you to think about where and when do we read? Reading isn't limited to reading books. It's not limited to bedtime stories. It's not limited to reading your child's home reading book. I want you to think about all the different things that you've read today. So I have read my petrol gauge and realised it was very, very low, so I needed to get some petrol in my car. I've read the news on my phone. I've read a recipe book. I have read a train timetable. So actually, reading isn't just stories, it's a real skill for life. I just want you to pause there for a moment and think about all the different times that you read in a day. I know during the meeting that I had last week, a lot of people talked about reading their religious texts, reading the Quran daily, reading bus timetables, for example, reading leaflets in medicine packets. It's all really important that we read and understand information that we read. It's when we don't understand information that we read that we can get into trouble. So we need to read safety instructions on bottles of cleaning products, etc. Instructions on how often to use a particular cream if we've got eczema. So it's all of those things that we really need to know. And actually, when you think about it, life would be really difficult without reading. And we want to ensure that our children are competent readers, but also enjoy reading as well. So story time can be a really special time with your children. And for me, the most important thing is that read the story in any language that you're comfortable with. If it's an English text and you want to look at the pictures and retell it in home language, do it. If you want to read it in 2 languages, do it. If you want to read a text that is in your home language, it doesn't matter. Read in any language. The most important thing is that children are read to. But when you do, make it a really special time. Find a quiet and cozy place. Give the children your undivided attention. Put your phone away. Ask your children to choose a story, or just tell them a story. I used to love listening to my nan tell me stories. She was such an amazing storyteller. and I could listen to her all day. And I really miss those stories now she's not here. But actually, we don't always have to have a book to hear stories, especially when we're thinking about family stories or generation stories. Often our sort of grandparents can have some really, really exciting stories that they can tell us and that we can enjoy listening to. But if you are looking at a book, look at the pictures. Ask the child to tell you what they think is happening. Talk about what you're seeing in the pictures. Ask them questions. Don't just fly through it and finish it. What's happening now? How is this person feeling? What might happen next? And take time to discuss every page and every picture. Ask your children to help turn the pages. Trace your finger over the writing as you read. So if it's in English, left to right. If it's in a different language, it might be right to left. But just to show them that print goes from one side to the other and also carries meaning. So how else can you support your child with reading at home? Make reading a part of your daily family life. Always read with your children. Those are the times your children will remember. It's a really, really special time. Bedtime stories are key because it calms your child down ready for bed, but it also creates a bond with your child. It's a really, really special time of day because everybody's busy. But actually, all you need to allocate is 10 minutes to read a story, and that 10 minutes is so valued by children. I'm going to talk to you in a minute about our reading diaries or reading records that we'll complete at school. So I'll touch on that in a moment, but it's really important that you complete these because we can then see how you're sharing a love of reading with your children. Read about topics your children are interested in. So if they love dinosaurs, find books on dinosaurs. If they love superheroes, find books on superheroes because you'll engage them more. Explain any new vocabulary in English or any language. It doesn't matter. The key is that we're talking to our children all the time. Talk to your children about what they've read today. Ask them questions about it. Joining the local library is really important as well because it's a really free way of obtaining books. But also expose children to different reading resources. So we have receipts, books, comics, magazines, top newspapers, movie reviews, bus timetables, bottles of cleaning products, medicines, backs of cereal packets. There's information everywhere. And from a very, very early age, children will learn that print carries meaning. I love this saying, there is no app to replace your lap. And I think we have so many advances in technology now, and children absolutely love screens. There's no doubt about it. But we can't replace that connection, that human to human connection that children get. So actually they'll get far more from you reading a story to them than even if they're watching that same story on CBeebies or on YouTube. So just spend that time with your child. It's so, so important. So at Gifford, we do lots of lovely things to promote reading. So we have reading competitions, we have extreme reading. We make sure that the texts in class are inclusive and representative of the children in our school. We have an own book scheme, which I'll explain to you in a moment, where children have access to free books that they can keep. We have storytelling in foundation stage, where we have people who come in from Story Magic to tell the children stories, and they absolutely love that. On our website, we've got teacher recommended videos. We have book fairs in autumn and summer term. We've got really high quality reading areas for the children to relax and enjoy their reading. In terms of our student leadership, we've got reading reporters who organise their own books and promote it, and little librarians who organise the library and recommend books. I was a librarian at school, I think partly because it got me out of playtime, if I'm honest, and I wasn't very good in the cold weather, but I always loved books as well. Author visits, so we have Neil Zeta, who's a poet who visits in the summer. We've had Banji Alexander who visited, and there's lots of other authors that we have access to that would come in and read to us at school. We celebrate World Book Day and Reading Day Festival. We have library visits, so we look at a range of books, comics, newspapers, and we also have indoor and outdoor libraries at school. So we did lots and lots of lovely things. So the Own Book Scheme is an initiative to help children have books at home for free. So they're not labelled with the school logo and can only be found in designated areas. You do not have to return these books. We also have our school library. that has a huge wide range of books. So children visit the library each week and they can borrow books, but these books do have the school logo in and these must be returned. If a book gets lost or damaged, it happens. Just speak to your child's teacher and they can sort it. But please don't worry. Life happens sometimes. So you've all got a little bit of homework to do now. So what I'd like you to do is choose a story to share with your child. Think back to the story time tips for success. So a nice quiet area, get your children to choose, ask your children to explain why they've chosen that book, look at the pictures, constantly talk about what you think is happening in the story. Again, it doesn't matter what language this is in. Please don't think that you have to read in English. The important thing is the time that you spend reading. So most of all, enjoy it. Give your child a cuddle, get cozy, and spend some quality time together. It's a really, really special time. Story time as a teacher is my favourite time of day and always has been as well. So before I leave you, I'm just going to talk a little bit about reading records. So these will be sent home with your children. Now, reading records are traditionally used for home reading books, and home reading books are generally matched to your child's phonetic ability. Now, home reading books are often very, very simple stories, and they're very simple so that your children can learn to read them. It doesn't mean that they're often the best story and the most enjoyable story. So they should always be used alongside other reading materials. They should never substitute a bedtime story, for example. But actually, what I would like is for us to use our reading records as more than just to write, I read page 3 to 5 tonight, because that's not exciting for you. It's not exciting for us, and it won't make your children excited. So if you want to put photos in your reading record, that's great. If you want to put the bedtime story you read, that's amazing. Did your child like it or did they not like it? That's okay, right? My child really enjoyed this story tonight and wanted to read it again. Or my child didn't like this story, so we won't read it again. But use this reading record as a tool to encourage reading so we can put our bedtime stories. If your child's read a shop sign that you didn't know they could read, pop it in here. Just write Tesco, comment, my child read Tesco when we went shopping. Or they might have noticed that one of the aisle labels said something, or they might have noticed a particular cereal box and read what's on there. Write it all in. If they've helped you look at a bus or train timetable, write it in here. I know it says book title, but that column here can be open to anything. So where it says book title, put bus timetable, comment, my child helped me plan our journey home. Brilliant. If you're writing and reading greetings cards for a particular celebration, put in there, we read this greetings card from Nanny as a family. If you've read cereal boxes at breakfast time, Weetabix box, we read the ingredients in the Weetabix. It doesn't matter what it is, but every time you're reading, put it in here because it will help to build a really big picture of what you're reading at home. Also, if you put in here, we enjoyed the story Peace at Last at bedtime, as teachers, we can then ask your children about that. Oh, did you read Peace at Last with Mummy? Oh, what did you like best about that story? It gives us a real insight and enables conversation about reading. So I hope you found this useful. We will be sending our reading records home very shortly. So please engage with it. Please, please, please ask your child's teacher if you've got any questions about the reading records. I just, most of all, hope that you enjoy reading. Take care and thank you very much. Bye.